Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Bud Light. Bud Light workers are furious at the failure of the Dylan Mulvaney scam. These are people who were fired from Anheuser-Busch. Why were they fired? Well, these were part of the marketing team, it looks like, that got let go. Bud Light did lay off 2% of all the Anheuser-Busch employees, roughly around 360 of them. None of the people that actually make the beer, but people in their marketing department. Let's get into this story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you. Coming from Daily Mail, Bud Light workers accuse leadership of cowardice over Dylan Mulvaney fiasco and say companies should have supported the trans influencer despite sales being down 30% by volume nationally since 2022. That 30% drop in sales, it's much worse than it seems. It's not even evenly distributed throughout the country. At least if it was distributed evenly throughout the country, there'd be less of an impact. Because if it's off 70% in some places, like in the South, or if it's off 10% in other places, it's much more difficult from a manufacturing, a marketing, and a distribution perspective to deal with that kind of a change. This is an absolutely massive disruption to Anheuser-Busch's business, and it's not just for the Bud Light product, it's for many of their brands that have been negatively affected by this ridiculous Dylan Mulvaney promotion. But some of the employees are really angry that Anheuser-Busch didn't just burn the entire company up promoting Dylan Mulvaney as if the entire purpose of the company was to promote Dylan's trans agenda. This is coming from The Guardian, and we'll get back to the Daily Mail article in a moment. Incompetence on a national level. The idea for Mulvaney's March Madness post came from a Bud Light team member who, quote, wanted to push and make change, says a former Anheuser-Busch employee. The team member was excited to, quote, slowly but surely plant the seeds of inclusion. When you work for a company, you are not supposed to be planting seeds for anything other than people consuming your product or service. You have no business trying to push, quote, inclusion, end quote, whatever that might be. No one is hiring you to push inclusion if you're on a marketing team. The whole purpose is communicating the benefit of your product or service to your customers. And that is not an easy thing to do, no matter how experienced you are. That needs to always be the focus, not planting seeds for social justice. Former Bud Light workers have accused its leadership of cowardice following the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco and said the company should have supported the trans influencer more. Sales at Anheuser-Busch are down 30% since 2022, following their disastrous partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, a transgender influencer well known on TikTok. The former top-selling beer has since been surpassed by Modelo, Coors, and Yuengling in sales. Now, ex-employees at the company have slammed leadership for lying to staff, not supporting Mulvaney enough, and keeping them in the dark while the firm faced setback after setback. They expressed wishing that management had just stuck to their guns and told the world to, quote, get over it, rather than reeling after the mistake. One person who used to work in the Anheuser-Busch publicity department told The Guardian that after the ordeal, quote, my job was not normal. It was completely different and very strange. Yes, because they were trying to save the company from complete destruction. This boycott of Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch's other products really is unprecedented. I have no prior experience I could refer to, except there was a marketing disaster when Coke redid their formula in the 1980s and tried to push something called New Coke because they wanted the product to taste sweeter like Pepsi. It didn't work out. People did reject New Coke, but it had nothing like the resistance of Dylan Mulvaney's new rebranded Bud Light. Nothing like this has ever happened before in marketing that I've ever seen. Another former employee said about the aftermath of the disastrous partnership, quote, there was a lot of panic and a lot of rash decision making. Well, why would people be panicking when there are 500 independent distributors that provide all of the revenue back to Anheuser-Busch? When Anheuser-Busch has sales of this number of billions or that number of billions, this is money that flows to them not directly from bars and restaurants and supermarket chains. This is money that comes through 500 independent distributors that are not owned by Anheuser-Busch. When Anheuser-Busch hears from their independent distributors, hey, what the hell are you doing? People are really unhappy out in the marketplace. Who is this Dylan Mulvaney? Why are we pushing a trans agenda? Aren't we just selling beer? Anheuser-Busch has to respond to that. It's not like they have control over those independent distributors to the point that they can say, listen, just shut up, keep selling the beer. The most important thing is that our marketing staff feel like we're pushing an inclusive agenda and planting seeds. They can't do that. Well, we didn't hear anything from leadership for over a month. And then after a few weeks, someone high up at Anheuser-Busch released a statement that pretty much said nothing. Others said Alyssa Heinerschied, the marketing vice president who was blamed for the disaster, had nothing to do with it. The former worker told The Guardian there was incompetence in the leadership on a national level at Anheuser-Busch. Okay, this is a ridiculous statement. I've covered it, but I'm going to cover it again. Alyssa Heinerschied is 1,000% responsible for this ridiculous promotion coming out and for the response and dealing with the response to the promotion, because she was still at the company at the time. She hadn't run away on a leave. She was there at the company at the time. When you're in charge of something, that means you're in charge of something. Yes, the CEO of Anheuser-Busch is responsible, but in the branding and the communication related to Bud Light, Alyssa Heinerschied had everything to do with this promotion, even if the promotion was conceived of before she got there, which is what some of these employees are claiming. Once the marketplace started to respond very negatively to this promotion and a social media fire started to spread, that was Ms. Heinerschied's responsibility to respond to that, to speak publicly, and to deal with the issue, which she never did. Ex-workers at Anheuser-Busch also expressed feeling concern for Mulvaney during the situation, but they were often shut down by their bosses. One person recalled asking their boss, quote, "Are we doing anything we can as a company to support Mulvaney?" The response was, "Yes, don't worry about it. We're constantly talking to Mulvaney." Well, of course they're going to say, like, stop asking about how Mulvaney is doing. Mulvaney finally, months after all this took place, September 14th, expressed some concern for the people that were negatively affected by this promotion. Mulvaney could have come out and said, look, I apologize if I've insulted anyone, if I've offended anyone. That was never my idea. All I wanted to do was have a little fun and try to promote this product and make a little bit of money. I understand that I'm not probably the best spokesperson for Bud Light. Mulvaney could have come out and really just tried to apologize and cover this whole situation. Mulvaney could have also said, please don't take however you feel about me and cause that to permanently make you want to not support the Bud Light brand or any Anheuser-Busch products. Again, I apologize. Mulvaney did not do that, even though we know of over 1,000 employees that were laid off, 645 from a glass plant, 350 or so from Anheuser-Busch so far, because of the Bud Light boycotts directly related to Mulvaney's promotion. Finally, months later, yes, Dylan Mulvaney did say that the Bud Light backlash was a wake-up call and felt guilty that it affected a lot more lives than just Dylan Mulvaney after the sales plunged. That was the right thing to say. It should have been said in May at the very least, because this came out April 1st, and very soon after it was obvious it was a disaster. But at least Dylan Mulvaney finally came out and said something, though it was months too late. Other workers at the beer company described how they felt worried about job security while the company's shares and profits plummeted, but bosses didn't do much to help. One former employee said, quote, "I don't remember there being much assurance. It's possible that there was a canned response given in some town hall meeting. They said there were lots of trickle-down lies from leadership." And another said they wished bosses had just admitted, "We did this. Beer is for everyone. Get over it." That doesn't work. You can't just get consumers to accept whatever it is that you want to push on consumers. Even if you're just focused on the product or the service, consumers don't automatically want whatever it is you're trying to sell them. You have to make sure that whatever you have is a solution to a problem that consumers have. And I understand that sounds a little bit strange when we're talking about the brand of a beer, but the brand of a beer does actually solve problems for customers. So does Coke. So do all kinds of consumer products. It's a little bit complicated. But simply put, no, you can't just say We also, by the way, in addition to trying to get you interested in our consumer product, we want you to now worship and accept our progressive agenda. The company said Bud Light sales were down 27% by revenue over a 4-week period in September against the same period in 2022. Those are numbers from Bump Williams Consulting, no doubt, but it's a reference to revenue. It's at least 30% when it comes to volume, physical bottles and cans of beer. And that reduction in volume is going to mean a lot when it comes time to doing layoffs, unfortunately, for the people that make this beer. And that will be coming soon. Just last week, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates bought 1.7 million shares of Anheuser-Busch on the back of Wall Street analysts encouraging investors to buy the stock in the drinks brand. This month saw Bud Light's latest attempts to bring back former drinkers with the launch of bottles specific to college sports teams, including the University of Kentucky Wildcats. In August, Bud Light's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, expressed confidence in its U.S. market share, saying it's stabilized. It's true their market share seems to be at a steady negative 30% volume, which is absolutely disastrous. However, they're now going to be losing a lot of shelf space, so their sales will continue to go down. If you lose shelf space, you lose the opportunity to sell product to people. Less shelf space, less sales. It always works that way. Their sales are going to continue to go down. The company said its total U.S. market share for all brands fell more than 5% to 36.9% in April, but then remained stable from the end of April through the end of June. Some of the company's brands like Busch Light and Michelob Ultra supposedly gained U.S. market share. It must be that all the Modelo and Coors were sold out, so people picked up a couple of the other brands. He also said internal polling shows that 80% of U.S. consumers remain favorable or neutral towards Bud Light. That's absolutely ridiculous. Quote, 1, they want to enjoy their beer without a debate. 2, they want Bud Light to focus on beer. 3, they want Bud Light to concentrate on the platforms that all consumers love, such as the NFL and music, he said. This is obviously a skewed poll with ridiculous questions. Some investors raised concerns about the company's discounts on Bud Light. In early July, for example, one Michigan grocery store was offering a $15 rebate on a 24-pack of Bud Light, which normally sells for $20.99. But Ducaris, CEO of Anheuser-Busch, said price increases over the last year have put the company in a better position to offer discounts. And he said summer marketing campaigns were planned even before the Bud Light situation. It's absolutely true that before this boycott situation, Anheuser-Busch contemplated raising prices and got away with raising prices for all their products. That has really helped them with revenue, which is why as we've covered the sales changes and volume changes, volume is always a worse number than their revenue drop because the prices are higher. So if you have less volume, but you have higher prices, you lose less money, but it's still a massive loss for them. The one positive from this story in particular is the employees from their marketing teams that are commenting about all of this, that are complaining about all of this, seem to be all former employees. So at least Anheuser-Busch found their troublemakers and wiped them out. However, it is true that the upper management is responsible for this promotion starting in the first place, and future stupid woke promotions. They are still sponsoring pride parades. They're still sponsoring woke events. They're going to continue to do things like that. Probably not as overt and ridiculous as the Dylan Mulvaney promotion, though. I would say if you want to just get a product or service and you don't want to get their political messaging, stay away from those companies. You don't need those companies and their agenda. You may as well support the companies that are just there to serve you, not to brainwash you. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.